Hi, it's Prue from Fuzzy Ink Stationery. I'm here today to talk you through the Ancestor Trading Card template, which is now available on my Etsy store. This will be a 4-part series, and during that time, we're going to look at one-time setup. That will be week 1, which is this episode. In weeks 2 and 3, I will show you how to create your cards. And in week 4, we'll look at preparing the file for export and then printing that final PDF. All of the information that I'll go through in this video series is also available in the template or in the guide PDF, which you will get in the zip folder if you purchase the product. One-time setup. What does that mean? That's where you will choose and decide to either install my recommended fonts or choose fonts already installed on your computer, make adjustments to the color palette, and I'm going to show you how to save that customized file as a template so you can use that again and again to create more cards of your ancestors. Install or select fonts. There are 2 options. You can download and install the recommended fonts or choose your own fonts, which means you can change selected text only. There will have been a number of predefined font themes that were installed when you added Microsoft Office to your computer. You can choose one of those or create your own custom font theme. Let's go into download and install recommended fonts. Use the links in the guide PDF. These will take you to the websites where you can download each of the fonts, unzip those fonts and get them ready to install, then drag it into the fonts folder if you're onto a Windows OS. Let's have a look at that in action. Downloading and installing the recommended fonts is quite easy. You just need to open the guide PDF and go to page 6. Then it's just a matter of selecting the link. Bebasnu is going to load the website, so you just scroll down to the bottom until you find the download button. Almost there, and then it's just click download. Now it will ask you to subscribe, but you don't have to. You can just click the little X and that's going to go away. Then we're going to go back over here and do the same for the cabin. So select that button. This one's a bit different because it's going to automatically download that for you, which you can see. We can go in here and we can see that both of those fonts have downloaded. Now to install, I've already gone ahead and unzipped the files ready to install, so it's just a matter of selecting them and dragging them over into your fonts window. Alright, now it's time to choose your fonts. The first thing that we're going to look at is changing selected text. The way to do that is to select the text or placeholder, then you browse and choose an alternate font. Note that the font size may need to be adjusted because not all fonts are equal. A lot of them vary in character size, which means that the width or the height of the character might be bigger or smaller, and the text will no longer fit neatly into your placeholder. So let's have a look at that in action. In this example, I'm going to change one of the headings on the front of the card. In this instance, it will be parents. So I simply select that text. I go to the Home tab and the font group, and I click on this little black arrow, and that will bring up all of the fonts on my computer. Now we can see that it's using the theme fonts and it's using the heading, but I want to make this one stand out a little bit more, be something a little bit different. So I will choose from one of the other files on my computer. I've chosen that one. You'll see there's 2 things. It's no longer all caps because the font I've chosen is not a capitalized font, but also it seems much smaller, and I'm going to have to increase the size of that, which I can do either by clicking on the increase size or just manually going through and increasing that through the drop down. And then I might want to change that to a P. We'll just zoom out a little, and that's it. That's all there is to changing the font size of selected text. Our next choose your fonts option will be selecting a predefined font theme. So every placeholder in the template has been set up to use the theme fonts, which we just saw briefly in the last example. Changing the theme fonts will update all of the placeholders in all of the layouts. You can easily select a predefined font theme. These were installed when you added Microsoft Office to your computer. But remember, the same warning about the font size may need to be adjusted because not all fonts have the same character width and height. Alright, let's take a look at that in action. Okay, changing the predefined font theme might be even easier than changing selected text. What I want to do before we jump into it, I'm just going to go into this placeholder and show you that we are using the theme fonts with Bevis New and Cabin. Now to change that, we click on the Design tab, go over to Variants, select the down arrow for more, choose Fonts, and then just scroll through the available pairings. You'll notice as I am hovering the mouse cursor over each of the font selections that it is actually changing the example text so I can get an idea of what that's going to look like. I'm going to choose Trebuchet, and now if we go back to our Home tab, we click in the placeholder, you'll see that the theme fonts have actually changed, and if we save that, that will save it. These will be the fonts that we will have going forward. Now the last part of choosing your own fonts is to create a custom font theme. It pretty much is exactly what it sounds like. But again, I just want to remind you that changing fonts may require some adjustments in the placeholders because remember the width and height of the characters will vary from font to font. But let's take a look at that in action. Okay, now this is basically limited to your imagination. We're going to create a custom font theme. So it's a little bit like what we did before. We go to the Design tab, Variants, we're going into Fonts, but this time we're going to go all the way down to the bottom and choose Customize Fonts. That will open this window and you can see the fonts that I have selected for the card, and it's just like changing our fonts before. Select that and then just scroll through what is available on your computer, and then you do the same for the body font. You can give that a name, fonts, and click save. That will update your fonts. You'll notice in some places that they may or may not work depending on the layouts, so you might need to go in and do a little bit of adjustment. Alright, now we're finished with the fonts, let's talk about colors. Again, we have two options. You can use the default color palette or you can choose your own colors. If you want to choose your own colors, it's either switch to a predefined color palette or create your own. The default color palette is Sapphire, Rose, Orange, Lemon, Emerald, and Apple. And each of the layouts is set up in each of these accent colors, so all you need to do is switch layout to be able to use that color. Or maybe you do want to choose your own. So switching to use a predefined color palette is pretty easy. Every element of the template has been set to use a shade from the color palette. Changing the color palette is going to update all of the layouts, so you only need to do it once. And you can select a predefined color palette because a number of them would have been installed when you added Office to your system. Let's take a look at that in action. Okay, now that we're going to have a look at just doing a predefined color palette. So again, it's straight to the Design tab, and over under Variants, the more, we're going to choose colors, and you'll notice there's a bunch of different color palettes already created, and just by hovering over them with my mouse you can see that the layouts are actually changing. Now before I change one, I just want to quickly show you, if I right click and choose layout, so you'll see that's my standard default color palette is in place. Now if I go into Variants, Colors, and I'm going to choose this nice bright one, and now if I go into Layout, notice how that has actually updated all of the layouts. So what you could do is you can create different decks for different families and have them in different files, so you can have a number of different color palettes available to you. Alright, now let's talk about creating a custom color palette. The one thing you will need before we go into this is you'll actually need to know what your custom colors are. You can see here just from the small screen cap of the guide PDF, that you'll have two options of choosing either from the standard or custom. But if you want a completely custom palette, you will need to have the RGB values ready to go. Now you can look at for sites like Coolers, Adobe Cooler, or Color Lovers to get some ideas for colors that you may love for your cards. Are you ready to create your custom color palette? Me too. Okay, again on the design tab, you know where we're going. Over here where we click for more, and then we're going into colors, go all the way down to the bottom, and we want to choose customize colors, and that's going to bring us to this screen. We're specifically looking at the 6 accent colors, so accent 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, to change those, and we have to do them one at a time. So it's select the arrow and go into more colors. Now, as I mentioned before, you can choose from this standard palette, and you can choose any of those colors. For example, this one, we'll say okay, we'll do that one for that example, and then accent 2, more colors. Now, you can do this two ways. You can add in your RGB values that you might have gotten from a site like colorlovers.com, or you can just move this little hash around, I'm not really sure what to call it, and whatever pops up here in this little new box, that's going to be your new color. So you can just move it around, and then you can decide if you want that to be lighter or darker. And once you get a color that you're happy with, you click OK, and that becomes accent 2. So repeat that for each of the accents. I'm just going to pick some random colors here just to show you as an example. This is probably not a color palette that I would actually use, but that's okay. Pick a couple from standard. And then again, you would just name that, or you might give it your family name. I'll give mine at the end, and then you click save, and that's going to apply to all of your layouts. So if we look at layouts, you'll notice that none of them are the default colors anymore. As I said, it's probably not a palette I would use, but that's a quick idea of how you create your own custom color palette. Okay, last step. Talking about saving customized templates. Did you make any changes to your template? Update the fonts, change the colors? If you didn't, you don't have to save anything. You can just keep using the default template. But if you did and you want to save your template, I'm going to quickly tell you the difference between a PPTX and a POTX file, and then I'm going to show you how to save it. Okay, the main difference between a PPTX file and a POTX file is that one is a template and one is a standard PowerPoint file. If we go into our PowerPoint and we go File New, we choose Custom, we go into the Custom Office Templates, that's where we will find our POTX files that we've saved. If we click Create, it will open it, and you will see how it opens as Presentation 2, and that means that it's opened as a new version of the document. If I were to go into File Open and I were to choose Samples for Images, that's going to open a file I've already created before, and it says PPTX, so you'll see that if I press save, I'm just going to save over the top of that. So creating a template means it's harder to save over the top of your file. Now if we just go in here, I'm going to show you very quickly how to save this as a template. It's really simple. It's just a matter of hitting F12. From Save as Type, you choose POTX. It'll automatically choose your custom office templates as your location, which is what you want. And this is our test template. The other way you can also reach that window is File, Save As. If you hit Browse, it's just automatically going to select that, and you can give it a name. That way when we go into New, Custom Office Templates, there you'll see our test template is already in there. That's it for this episode, so I will be back next week where we will actually start to create our own card. Until then, happy storytelling!